When I was 24, I took my first solo trip outside of North America. I picked Thailand because it was affordable, looked beautiful online, and a few friends had gone there. I spent most of the trip bouncing between Bangkok and some smaller beach towns. For the first week, everything went perfectly. The people were friendly, the food was great. I never felt unsafe. The incident happened during the second half of the trip. I had booked 3 nights at a small hotel outside of Krabi. It wasn't a resort or anything fancy, just a quiet place with maybe 20 rooms. It was surrounded by jungle on 3 sides and the ocean on the 4th. The area was peaceful, which was actually why I chose it. On my second day there, I rented a scooter and spent most of the afternoon exploring. Around sunset, I stopped at a roadside restaurant, about 20 minutes from the hotel. There were only a few people there. I ate dinner, had a couple beers. I started heading back just after dark. About halfway back to the hotel, I noticed another scooter behind me. I didn't think much of it at first. The road was basically one long stretch along the coast. It made sense another person would be traveling the same direction. The problem was that every time I slowed down, they slowed down. Every time I sped up, they sped up. At one point, I pulled over completely and pretended to check my phone, and the scooter passed me. I felt relieved for a second. Then about 50 yards ahead, it pulled off the road and stopped. The rider just sat there waiting. I stayed where I was for maybe 30 seconds before turning around. I drove until I found a gas station with several people standing outside. I waited there for about 15 minutes. Eventually, I decided I was overreacting. I headed back toward the hotel. When I got back, everything seemed normal. The next day, I spent most of my time at the beach. Around noon, I noticed a man sitting alone near the tree line. He wasn't looking at the ocean or on his phone. He just seemed to be watching people. I only paid attention because he looked familiar. It took me a minute to realize he was wearing the same dark jacket as the rider. I couldn't be certain because I never got a good look at the rider's face. But I had a bad feeling. I left the beach. As I walked back toward the hotel, I glanced behind me. The man was walking too. He wasn't directly behind me, but just far enough away to look casual. I got back to my room and stayed there for most of the afternoon. That evening, I mentioned it to the guy working in the front desk. He listened politely but didn't seem overly concerned. He told me tourists sometimes become nervous while traveling alone, and that I should call if something happened. I actually felt embarrassed after saying it out loud. The story sounded a little far-fetched.
A guy was at the beach, a guy was on the road, that was it.
I went to bed feeling stupid. But around 2 a.m., I woke up needing to use the bathroom. The room was dark, except for a little moonlight coming through the curtains. As I sat up, I heard something outside. At first, I thought it was an animal. Then I heard it again. Footsteps. My room was on the ground floor. The footsteps stopped directly outside the window. I sat completely still. Maybe 10 seconds passed, and I heard someone try the door handle, but very gently, like just one slow turn. My heart immediately started pounding. The handle returned to its normal position, and then there was silence. There was one more attempt after a few seconds, this time slightly harder. I grabbed my phone and called the front desk, but nobody answered. I remembered the office closed overnight. The hotel didn't have overnight staff. I was completely alone. The footsteps moved away from the door, and I started telling myself it was another guest who had gotten confused. I don't know why I did it, but I stood up and pulled back a tiny corner of the curtain. There was a man crouched directly beneath the window, looking up. The second he saw movement behind the curtain, he stood up and ran. I locked myself in the bathroom and stayed there until sunrise. The hotel owner arrived around 7 a.m. I told him everything. For the first time since arriving, someone seemed genuinely concerned. He asked me to describe the man. When I finished, he immediately pulled out his phone and showed me a photo. It was the same guy. The owner told me that man wasn't a guest. Apparently, local businesses had to report him several times over the previous year. He would follow tourists, sometimes for days. Nobody knew exactly what he wanted.
I packed my bags and checked out immediately. The owner helped arrange transportation to another hotel.
I thought that would be the end of it. But about 2 hours later, I stopped at a convenience store. While I was paying for a bottle of water, I happened to glance out the window. Across the road was a scooter parked beneath a tree. The rider was wearing a dark jacket.
The moment I saw him, he started his scooter and drove away. I didn't see him again after that.
I don't know whether he intended to rob me, kidnap me, break into my room, or something else entirely. But he never made a move. He just watched me and followed me to multiple locations. Like he found my hotel and stood outside my room in the middle of the night.
I've traveled to a lot of countries since then, and had plenty of strange experiences.
But nothing has ever matched the feeling of seeing that man crouched beneath my window at 2 a.m. Back when I was 17, my school went on a 5-day trip to Brussels, in Belgium. I had several good friends with me, so it was set up to just be a good time. Since we followed our school program, the activities we participated in were mostly obligatory. Don't get me wrong, some of them were a lot of fun, and everybody had a great time. It's just that I've always liked doing things outside of schedules too. Do a few things we were not supposed to do for the thrill of the moment. As you can imagine, the days went by quickly. By the end of day 4, everybody went to bed early. Since our bus ride home was going to be early, and it's a long drive back to Denmark, where I come from, we'd have to be up at 5 a.m. I've always been up too late at night. so sleeping early and missing out on the city was boring to me. I talked to a couple of my friends, but they were all going to bed.
I sat outside of the room I was sharing with 3 other guys from my school.
I opened up Tinder and started texting some girls I had matched with, succeeding finally to get a hookup appointment a few kilometers away. I went outside with the key belonging to our room and the old building that was only for us boys. Adrenaline was pumping, and I thought it was kind of fun just exploring by myself.
I followed the GPS location towards the girl's apartment.
She had her own apartment in an area that I would come to see was very poor and sketchy. Big windows were lit up by neon lights for many streets.
Only a few guys walked past, everybody minding their own business.
Big windows were lit up by neon lights for many streets. Finally arriving at the girl's apartment, I was pretty far away from the hotel that we were staying at. My meeting with the girl was great. We had fun. Nothing suspicious came from the encounter.
So after that, I started finding my way back to the hotel through the GPS on my phone.
It was September and cold outside. And now that my adventure had finished, I wasn't a fan of walking. It started raining. The GPS was leading me a different route than I had come from. As I started to feel uneasy, my phone screen went black. I completely lost it. I just shouted every curse word and started beating my phone to get it to start again.
It was dead. I looked around me to see if there was anything just slightly familiar,
understanding that I had to take responsibility quickly for the situation I put myself in. I walked straight to the first person who walked past me. I told them a bit of my story and asked them about directions to the city center.
The encounter helped me out. It was a guy around my dad's age.
Instead of just following me to the city center, he followed me all the way back to my hotel. I thanked him finally, relieved that what I thought would be the worst experience of the night was over. I locked myself into the building. They had automatic lock systems, which I thought was pretty safe. I went in, took a quick shower, got ready for the few hours of sleep I had left. When I woke up, a flashlight was pointed at my face.
A stranger's face was inches away. I did not make a sound.
I asked in English who he was. All of my body was tensed up. He told me that he came from the lobby, that he was helping my friend Samuel with finding something he had lost. Confused and dizzy, I grabbed out from my phone and watch, which were laying right beside me on the bed. The man backed away from my bedside and started looking inside our closet.
I asked him what Samuel had lost. Why was he looking inside the closet of our room which Samuel hadn't been in?
His visa, he answered. He can't find his visa.
Another student came into our room. he started talking to the man about the visa.
My roommate started waking up, asking the same questions I had. After a while, though, heavily fatigued, I fell back asleep.
The last thing I remember was me staring at the man as he was scanning through the backpack belonging to the guy across from me.
And by morning, when we were all awake and started talking, we learned the truth of what happened.
3 guys were missing their stuff. Visa, laptop, and other personal items. They were gone.
And the guy who claimed to come from the lobby, of course, did not. He took advantage of all us being tired and naive young guys in a foreign country. The police came pretty quickly, and our bus ride home got pushed back.
We never got an update from what happened. Samuel and the others received new visas and so on, back in Denmark.
I didn't hear much about it after that, but to this day, I can't help myself but think if somehow what happened was my fault. I was likely the last one to get inside before the man entered the building, since it was so late. And I guess if he wasn't all up in my face because of my personal items, there's always the possibility that he pointed that flashlight directly in my face.
In late summer 2019, my friends and I went on a trip to the far north of Norway.
Up in the Arctic Circle, in an area called Lofoten. It's a very scenic region, great for hiking and outdoor pursuits. We flew into the nearest city to rent a car, but population density is sparse up there. We were booked into an apartment in a small fishing village, which is about a 7-hour drive from the airport.
After a long day of traveling, we wanted to get to our rental as soon as possible. The speed limits were very strict also, which didn't help. There were long stretches of road which stretched miles in front of us, with no other traffic in sight. Anyway, it was approaching midnight, and we had broken the back of the journey. We had just passed the main town in the area, and it was now only 40 minutes left to go. Most of the road had been single lanes, but it split into an overtaking lane as we exited the town. I took this opportunity to pass a Golf, which was ahead of us.
I passed the car thinking nothing of it. I was talking with my friends when suddenly I saw him get really close.
She would repeatedly come closer and then back off until she switched on a large floodlight on the roof of her car.
It was very bright and distracting. As I mentioned earlier, the Norwegians seem to take their road safety very seriously. I did my best to remain calm and composed on the road and obey the speed limit. I muttered to my friend Jesse, an African-American male in the front seat with me, "Let's see if the sky follows us here." Needless to say, he did, and my patience began to wear thin. I put some distance between us, and strangely, he didn't speed up to catch us. By now, the whole group was nervous, but as he didn't race to catch us, we thought it might be okay.
We then hit a red light at a 1-lane bridge, which led to the village. Pensively looking in the mirror, I saw him wind around the corner when the light went green. I decided it would be sensible not to drive straight to our apartment and unpack our car.
So instead, I decided to wind through different random streets in the village and see if he followed. My heart sank as he did, and everyone was panicking. I have to mention, it was now past 1 a.m., and we were in a very remote area. Eventually, we hit a dead end, and I had to do a turn to face him.
He tried to block us in, but his car was fairly small, and with a bit of wheel work, I managed to get past him.